You're listening to the Dillo's Dojo podcast, hosted by Dylan Dillo Smith, Midwestern Ontario one and only MMA podcast, where we interview MMA fighters and voice actors like Sergeant Frank Woods.
What is up, everybody? It is Dillo, and welcome to another episode of the Dillo's Dojo podcast. This is episode 46, and listen, I know it's been a fucking month and a half since I've even said that. So I know I need to explain. There's a lot of explanations that need to be said. Some big news within those explanations. So, I mean, just sit back, relax. I'll just get right into those explanations. I'll go down the timeline, explain how everything went down, explain why I haven't been here. I apologize that I've just kind of left you guys hanging. I miss you guys, but just a lot has happened, and this little thing here, the podcast, has just kind of slipped my mind constantly. That's my bad. But let's start with the timeline. So I think the last time I've done an episode was, August 1st, I think? It's now September 25th as I'm recording this, so Sunday, September 25th. It's been a month and a half, almost 2 months. Very, very fucking close to 2 months. I want to say 5 days shy, 6 days shy of 2 months. I apologize. That wasn't my intention. I got sick after I uploaded my, August 1st episode. The week of that, like the week after that released, I got sick. It started off as a flu. I thought it was going to be like maybe 24 to 48 hour bug. I was like, whatever. This is a piece of cake. It started off as that, and then it got worse. It's just turned into a head cold, like a violent head cold where I was constantly coughing. I had the sniffles, had fucking migraines and just headaches. My voice was in no shape to record because I was constantly coughing, had raspy fucking throat. Could hardly smoke bowls. That's how sore my throat was and just how much I was coughing, really. Like, I couldn't even smoke bowls. Everybody knows. If you've known me for a long time on Twitter now, I'm a huge fucking stoner. I'm just not very vocal about it because it's just a thing I do. But I couldn't even smoke bowls, which is basically like my daily medicine. And that really fucking sucked. So I wasn't going to give you guys an episode where the entire episode was going to be me going me the whole fucking time. So I was like, I'm just going to take like a week off. That week turned into 2 because I was still sick the next week. But then I recovered. I was using my PC during the time that I was sick. And turns out the network cable, like not the network cable, but the network port, the network adapter, so the Ethernet port for my hardwired connection, fucking crapped out on me. So here I am now. I wanted to record. I wanted to get everything uploaded, everything edited. I do way better editing on my fucking actual PC, not my laptop. And all of a sudden, my network port fucking bitches out on me. So I'm a dumbass. I have no flash drives. I have no way of, transferring this shit. So basically, I'm at a loss here. I have to wait like a month or so until this comes in because of how sometimes Newegg can be. So I had to get a new fucking network port. So I have one now, thankfully, or you wouldn't be hearing this. And then on top of that, as I'm waiting for my network port, big news. I took another week off because I was honestly thinking of recording on my laptop just get it out of the fucking way. But then big news, the week of my wedding happened. So for an entire week, I didn't record. I didn't even pay attention much to MMA. My main focus was prepping for my wedding, getting my parents' property ready for the ceremony because that's where we had it. It was really beautiful, nice, gorgeous outside farm wedding. It was really nice, and the whole week was just spent focusing on that, prepping for that, rehearsing for that, just stuff like that. And yeah, I have no thoughts. I had no fucking thoughts of recording at all, even the day after my wedding, because my wedding was August 20th. So the day of fucking Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman 2. And I didn't even think of it. I was upset that I missed the head kick, but honestly, I had a way better time at my wedding than I would have just sitting there watching the fights. I love watching the fights, obviously, but I had a way better time at my wedding. And yeah, now I'm a married man. So after that, still didn't get my fucking network port. But September comes. beginning of September comes, I get my network port. At the same time, I'm starting to work doing like detailing limos and shit. And I'm starting schooling now. I'm doing online schooling for being an HR. I want to do human resources, so I'm doing schooling in college for that online. So on top of that, I'm working, I'm doing schooling, and I have to help the wife with the little one. So I honestly, once things started to settle down and I started getting to my schooling and getting settled into the job and everything, I probably could have recorded, but this is where I'm going to admit it was completely my bad. With everything that was going on and how busy I was, just completely slipped my mind. Recording was in the back of my mind, like literally the last thought of the day. Like I had no thoughts of recording at the time. My focus was getting my assignments done, going to work, and then, making sure that my wife had the support and taking care of the kid, right? So that was my bad on that. But there goes my like 6-minute explanation of where I've been. I'm back now. Things are starting to slow down and settle down in my life. So I think I'll be back for a while until something huge happens again and starts fucking causing chaos. But I'm hoping it'll take a long time for that. Next thing, though, I want to talk about, and I want to ask you guys personally about it. And honestly, between you and me, I don't know if it'll even matter what you guys say, but I wanted to ask, what would you guys think of me bringing my wife on and talking about, her experience with MMA, considering that I've just gotten her into MMA. My wife, before she met me, didn't even fucking give it a blink of an eye. And then as soon as she met me, she watches fight nights with me every now and then. She'll come in and watch fights with me and then leave. She's watched a couple pay-per-views in full with me now. So I wanted to just bring her on, talk to her, ask her what she thinks, and just, let you guys get to know my wife and everything. So I want to know what you guys think about that. On top of that, another thing I wanted to kind of shoot on you guys is, what would you guys think of me doing a vlog? And now I know you guys are probably going to think, why would you do a vlog? Your life is not that interesting. I know. Actually, October 22nd, I'll be attending, basically it's Prospect Fighting Championships 14, but it's a charity event that Prospect does with basically a liver disease or a kidney/liver disease charity known as Showdown in the Downtown. And basically what they do every year is they do like a benefit where most of the time it's combat sports related. It's either a kickboxing event or an MMA promotion does a full card, and all the tickets go to the proceeds, like all the proceeds go to the charity and everything. Last year, I believe it was Brendan Schaub doing comedy because, COVID happened. COVID's fucking stupid. And, just did its thing, kind of ruined MMA for a lot of us in Canada. But MMA is back. I'm attending my first ever MMA event, so that's why I wanted to do a vlog. So I was very excited about, upon finding out that they were coming here to London. So I was like, fuck yeah, I'm going to go attend this. So we're attending it. My wife is going to be there. She's going with me. It's going to be kind of like a date night for us. We're going pretty close to the cage. We're not going to be like ringside, but when it comes to seats in the stands, we're basically fucking floor level. It's going to be awesome. I'm excited for it. I got pretty decent tickets for it, so I'm really excited. That's why I wanted to do a vlog, because I thought it'd be pretty cool just to kind of do the whole experience, getting ready for it, going to the event, seeing where my seats are, seeing the actual event from my point of view, just cool things like that. But yeah, it's just going to be exciting. The main event is Kyle Propolek versus I think like Marcos something Lipido. I think he's like a Mexican MMA fighter who's like incredibly popular over in Mexico. So it's going to be like one of those things where the Mexican comes in and tries to spoil the homecoming of Kyle Propolek, who's actually a Canadian-born fighter, Windsor-based, so pretty close to me. And hopefully, my goal, before I lead on to the second half of the podcast, because I have a lot of UFC to cover since I've been away, my goal is to get Kyle on the podcast. I want to get Kyle Propolek on the podcast very soon before the event to kind of talk about his preparation of the event, his time in the UFC, his time outside of the UFC since, just kind of talk about all that stuff. So hopefully I can get a hold of him, because he follows me on Twitter and fucking interacts with me on Instagram a lot. So I'll try to get a hold of him, get him on the podcast. So that'll be cool. We'll talk about the event, and Hopefully you guys will see a vlog from me, but that's if you guys want one. As for the Newlywed podcast, genuinely, I might not fucking care what you guys think. I might just bring her on and you guys get to know my wife and get to know, her experience with MMA, what I've brought her into, basically. So hopefully that'll be the next episode, or maybe even we'll do that after her first actual live MMA event, so that'll be cool. But anyway, that's it for the first half of the podcast. Let's hear from my sponsor, Dubby, and then we're going to cover a lot of fucking UFC that I've missed. I am so behind. But anyway, let's get to that fucking word from my beautiful and tasty sponsor, Dubby. Before we get into the podcast, I just want to talk to you guys about my new sponsor, Dubby. What is Dubby? Dubby is a powdered energy drink that is actually a clean energy drink that's made to give you a focus with no crash or jitters or any angst that the other energy drinks on the market give you. They're also made with no maltodextrin fillers. They don't use any artificial dyes or any coloring, anything like that. And on top of that, Dubby contains vitamins, amino acids, nootropics, and caffeine that keeps you going. And on top of that, it's gluten-free. So if you're worried about your gluten intake, it's okay. These guys got you covered. And if you're worried about it coming out of a facility that's not FDA approved or FDA inspected, these guys, they're doing it legit. Their product's made in an FDA inspected facility and their product is FDA approved. So if you want to try any of these awesome flavors, because let's be honest, I'm about to tell you this, their flavors are all unique. You're not going to find a flavor anywhere else, only here at Dubby. So if you want to try 3 of their awesome new flavors in a starter pack with your own mixer cup, go on their website, pick the starter pack. It's $14.99. If you want to get 10% off of it, use Dillo's Dojo at checkout. That's DILLOS DOJO at checkout for 10% off. Once again, I want to thank Dubby for sponsoring the podcast. Anyway, enjoy your Dubby drink if you manage to use my code. Let's get back to the fights, folks. Alrighty. I've been gone for a month and a half. Alright, so a month and a half. And 6 UFC events missed talking about. Holy fucking shit. We've had, 4 fight nights, 2 pay-per-views. Both pay-per-views have been incredible. Upsets on both. The fight nights, even though, they're fight nights, the main events have all been fucking fire. And every single main card has been pretty fucking explosive and exciting. So, let's be real here. I am very disappointed in myself. Right? I'm disappointed in myself that I have missed all of this. I haven't physically missed all of it. I've watched them, obviously. I watched them live and shit. Obviously, every single one of them except for 278 because it was the night of my wedding. But let's be real. I'm upset that I didn't get to talk about them at the time with my full excitement and full force. Because after every single one of these fight nights, it's just, holy shit. Let's just start with the one that I missed directly after the last episode I uploaded. UFC Fight Night, or UFC on ESPN, Jamal Hill versus Thiago Santos. Fuck yeah, man. That main event alone is just incredible. That was coming fresh off of 277. Obviously, I talked about that in my last episode months ago. Holy fuck. This was supposed to be the tough finale, and I'll get to that in a bit. But the one fight on the prelims I wanted to talk about, man, is one of my favorite fighters that have come off last year's tough, Brian fucking Battle, bro. He went on against veteran Takashi Sato and knocked him out in 44 seconds with one of the laziest looking head kicks I've ever seen, but with such force behind it. You just see Sato fucking fold, bro. It was nasty. I think he got performance of the night for it, too. So, big ups to my buddy Brian Battle. Not my actual buddy, I wish, man. Dude's fucking cool as shit. But, another thing. Michael fucking Polish name. Can't remember his actual name. Michael Olajaychuk or something like that. He TKOs Sam Alvey in the prelim headliner. And next thing you know, finally, after I don't know how many fucking losses in a row, Sam Alvey got cut from the UFC. Finally. This man, before this fight, was on, I think, a 7-fight skid in the UFC, all by finish or dominant, fucking decisions or something. And I don't know what he had on Dana, but Dana was just signing him to new contracts, giving him fights on basically every fucking card. He'd lose them, get signed again. It was insane. Finally, though, he finally gets fucking cut from the UFC. It's insane. But let's get to that main card because we have 6 fights to talk about, 2 of them being the tough finale, and I want to talk about them and how exciting both fights were. But let's start with the lightweight bout between Terrence McKinney and Eric Gonzalez. So, Eric Gonzalez, not really well known to the masses and kind of seen by most fans when this happened as a gimme fight for Terrence McKinney, because if you didn't know, Terrence McKinney is one of the record holders for one of the fastest knockouts in lightweight history. But on top of that, he just came off of a loss against Drew Dober. An incredible fight, by the way, where it was back and forth all round until I think Drew Dober just caught him in a submission or something. But Terrence McKinney coming off of a loss, everyone's thinking this is a gimme fight. And honestly, it was. It got down to the ground, I think about close to a minute in. Next thing you know, that's where the whole fight took place. And Terrence McKinney, within 2 minutes, is snapping in a rear naked choke submission. He takes Eric Gonzalez's backpacks him, and just smothers him, constantly fighting the neck, making him fight those arms, making him constantly guess, and he sinks it in. Gets himself a first-round submission of Eric Gonzalez. He's back in the win column. But if that wasn't enough for you, we had another finish. Just before I get into the next fight, I want to just preface that the entire preliminary bouts, all of them, all 4 of them, were finishes. So, starting the main card, we have Terrence McKinney finishing Eric Gonzalez. Next, we have the heavyweights, Sergey Spivak versus Augusto Sakai. Both guys known relatively for their knockout power. Both guys relatively known for, standing and banging, swinging and banging, just trading punches. And that's exactly what we got. We got Sergey Spivak and Augusto Sakai trading punches with each other, hurting each other in the first round. Sergey Spivak in the second round, however, starting to get the better of Augusto Sakai, getting him up against the cage, landing the better shots. About halfway through the round, he lands a nice shot that kind of wobbles Augusto Sakai, and that gives him an opportunity to just kind of push him up against the cage, get to the ground. And he just unloads. He's unloading punches on Augusto Sakai, and Sergey Spivak ends up forcing the referee stoppage, and he wins by TKO in the second round. That brings us to the first of our 2 tough fights, which is Juliana Miller versus Brogan Walker. And, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I was really hard on Juliana Miller throughout the entire season. She was my favorite to start, but then she did that bullshit with Bobby, went off on Bobby for just Bobby being a good guy. He wasn't even giving training to the other team. He was just, as he is, I'm pretty sure he's like a psychologist or something. He was doing his job, basically, just kind of helping them out, giving them some mental advice. And Juliana took that personally. It really pissed me off. And throughout the entire season, she was just doing this bullshit fucking I'm the underdog. I've always been pushed down my whole life, and I'm better than this. And this whole believe in yourself bullshit, but not the whole stand up. When somebody knocks you down, stand the fuck up. It was more of a, if you feel down on yourself, it's okay to whine, but just remember, there's better days ahead. Just some annoying shit. So I was really hard on her. But that being said, she kind of shut up throughout the, near the end of the season. But Brogan started to really piss me off. She was getting very vocal, very annoying. Even after the season ended and it was the finale, she was very vocal, very ignorant to who was in front of her because Juliana Miller's 2-1. And my God, I have to say, it was her downfall. It was Brogan's downfall. Juliana Miller throughout the entire fight, Brogan got some good shots in, got some good offense in, but Juliana Miller, she controlled the fight in the stand-up, was landing the cleaner punches in the stand-up. When it got to the ground, Juliana was absolutely smothering her on the ground, scrambling quicker, more effectively, was landing way better strikes on the ground, and that really translated into the third round when, on the ground, she was just landing vicious punches, I think in the mount position, and then she started landing these elbows that were just really hurting Brogan. The ref had to step in. Juliana Miller is your tough 30 flyweight champion. So she is going to be in the UFC from now on. Now, I don't know when she's, next scheduled. We haven't seen anything in that regard yet. But, you know, like I said, I gave her a lot of shit throughout the entire season, but like good on her for doing that. She shut up an equally, if not more annoying opponent and made it look easy. Like she's going to be a killer. If she continues to train and get better the way she is going to be a killer. Like it's insane. It is insane how much, like how good she looks. And she's only my age, I think, maybe like a year older. It's insane. That being said, that's only the first of the 2 tough fights. And if you're keeping score, we are now 3 fights going into our 4th fight in the main card, and that is 3 finishes. We're not done. We're going in to the tough finale, bout number 2. Muhammad Usman versus Zach Paega. And honestly, this was one that was really hard for me to cheer for because I liked both guys throughout the entire season. Mo Usman was very humble, very down to earth, very to himself. And I feel like it was because he knew he was riding the coattails of his brother and he wanted to kind of prove himself. So I was all for that. Zach Paega, on the other hand, you know, former football player turned MMA fighter, actually really good at fucking MMA fighting. And just, again, another down to earth dude, very, very calm, very centered. I liked both of them because of that. They were very down to earth, very kind, very calm hearted. And honestly, I loved that about them. So this fight was really hard to kind of cheer for either person. But ultimately, it was basically a striking bout. It almost went to the ground a couple times, but this was a boxing bout between both guys, which ended up being the better for Mo Usman because Muhammad Usman showed that he had slightly better boxing and landed the harder punches. I want to say 30 seconds, around 30 seconds in round number 2, he lands vicious punches that just knocks Zach Paega out, and he becomes your tough 30 heavyweight champion. So, again, if you're keeping score, 4 fights in the main card, 4 finishes. That's 8 fights into the whole card, 8 finishes. We have 2 fights left. Jeff Neal versus Vicente Luque, which was just going to be pure adulterated violence as is, and Jamal Hill versus Thiago Santos, which also was going to be slated to be pure unadulterated violence. So let's get into them. First fight, Jeff Neal versus Vicente Luque. Holy fucking beans, dude. Back and forth the whole way. Vicente Luque hurting Jeff Neal. Jeff Neal hurting Vicente Luque. But I want to say like around throughout the second round, Jeff Neal starts to get his fucking footing, man. He's hurting Vicente Luque more, landing a lot more. Just holy shit. It was like a completely rejuvenated Jeff Neal. It was like Jeff Neal he kicked on turbo mode. It was insane. He started landing more punches, more kicks, more strikes against the cage, was making it brutal. Throughout the third round, he's landing clean shots that are wobbling Vicente Luque, but because Luque's got just an insane chin, he's eating them all in stride, walking through the wobbly legs, like just not giving a fuck. And then Jeff Neal lands a couple of fucking shots into a combo that just knocks Vicente Luque out cold. And it was an insane fight. Like, holy fucking shit. So, another KO, and we're going into the main event. We have all fucking finishes so far. And if that wasn't enough to feed your bloodlust, we had Jamal Hill versus Thiago Santos. Thiago Santos piecing up Jamal Hill in the first round. Jamal Hill showing that he's the younger, faster fighter throughout the other 2 rounds. Second round, he's piecing up Thiago Santos, leg kicking him into oblivion, showing him that his game is better than Thiago's. Thiago tries to take him to the ground, and he successfully does it, but Jamal Hill showing that he's the better grappler and has learned a lot since his Paul Craig loss. And just holy shit, man. Just strikes on the ground, strikes on the feet. Just pure unadulterated violence for 4 rounds until Jamal Hill lands a series of punches and elbows that just causes Thiago to just turtle up and the ref has to step in. But oh my god, man. Holy fuck. Oh my god. All fights ended in a finish. 10 fights, 10 finishes. I believe that is like the first time since UFC Fight Night Rockhold versus Bisping that ever happened. That was 2014, so the first time in like 8 years that has ever happened. Incredible. But if that wasn't enough, we had another fight night after that, which the main event, again, was also slated to be pure violence and pure fun. So if we want to get into that, let's do it. Nothing really to talk about here when it comes to, nothing to talk about here when it comes to prelim fights. Nothing that really got my eye in terms of prelim fights. But let's go into the main card because, like I said, we still have so much MMA to talk about. Like, holy fuck, dude. We still have 5 events, this one, and 4 more events to talk about. So Gerald Meerschaert starts off the fight night with a submission win over Bruno Silva in the 3rd round after a very hard-fought fight against both. And if that wasn't enough for your finish fix, Priscilla Cachoeira, one of the most hated women at bantamweight, comes in and beats Ariana Lipski, one of the most beloved women at bantamweight, via TKO. Literally out queen of violences her, like, in an insane way. And if that wasn't enough, Azmat Mirzakhanov fights Devin Clark and finishes him via a violent series of punches that ends up in a TKO. And then it starts to slow down. Yasmin Jaragui and Aisman Lucindo go and just have a kind of forgettable fight that ends in a unanimous decision. Nate Landwehr and David Onama, though, go back and forth in a absolute banger in the co-main event, where it sees Nate Landwehr score a majority decision over David Onama, one of the judges seeing it a tie. So that was kind of, curious. But we're here for the main event. We're here for the meat and potatoes of the fight night. The main event. Marlon Chito Vera versus Dominic Cruz. This whole fight, man, was a back and forth fight. Nobody was hurting each other majorly, but you could hear they were landing clean shots. Dom was landing leg kicks like crazy, and so was Marlon Vera. Marlon Vera was boxing Dominic up, but every now and then Dom doing his crazy-ass head movement, slipping out of the way like he always does, because, Dom's known for his weirdly dynamic movement, where he's always out of the way of danger no matter what. But this time, that ended up being his downfall, because in the 4th round, Marlon Vera started to kind of figure him out and figure out that little head dip he does, and as he tries to fake a couple punches to cause the head dip, Dom does the head dip, and as he does the head dip, Marlon lands a head kick out of hell that literally stiffens up Dominic Cruz and makes him almost face plant into the fucking cage. Like, it was brutal. Knocks him out cold. Like, out cold, man. That's the first time I've seen Dominic Cruz actually knocked the fuck out. Everybody can say, oh, well, he fought Cejudo and got knocked out. Nah, he got TKO'd in that. He got knocked the fuck out in this fight. Like, Cheeto knocked him out cold. It was brutal. But, it was a great fight altogether. Pretty decent fight card. And if that wasn't enough, obviously, we had the fight night, the pay-per-view on my goddamn wedding day. Like, whatever. I'm not mad. I'm not mad. I'm not upset at all. I don't care. I really don't care. I'm happy that, I got married. Everything was fucking awesome. Everything went smoothly. But this pay-per-view, not bad, man. Started off with Tyson Pedro versus Harry Hunsucker. Tyson Pedro showing Harry Hunsucker does not belong on the pay-per-view prelim or the pay-per-view main card, defeating him by a violent body kick that drops Harry Hunsucker, and he follows up with punches, not letting Harry Hunsucker breathe, winning by TKO. But we have Lucy Pudlova versus Wu Yanan, and that was an incredible fight that was pretty back and forth, where Lucy ends up picking up the violent elbow TKO. Like, it was violent. I love elbows, if you guys didn't know. That being said, it was kind of expected with this fight. A very forgettable fight between Merab and Jose Aldo. Aldo had some good moments of success throughout the fight, but Merab did what Merab was expected to do. And Merab wrestled Jose and completely dominated him to a decision that ended up being a 2-1 decision on 2 judges' scorecards, a 3-0 decision on one of them. It was just a domination. That brings us to the co-main event where, honestly, even though Paulo Costa dominated all 3 rounds, it was an incredible back-and-forth fight between both guys. One that I really didn't expect out of Luke Rockhold. Like, holy shit. Paulo Costa came in ready for a war, and so did Luke Rockhold. Both guys going back and forth, landing nice strikes. Just incredible scrambles on the ground, but I think, for the most part, most of the fight actually took place on the feet. which was a nice, pleasant surprise, and ended with Paulo Costa winning a all judges scorecards 30-27 decision. So Paulo Costa feeling pretty good about that. Luke Rockhold, I believe, just basically saying like, nah, I'm not done yet. I think he's wanting another fight after that. So, I mean, after the showing he did on that night, I don't blame him. It was a pretty decent showing after his last two. You know, he got knocked the fuck out in his like last 2 to 3 fights, you know, and then he goes decision against one of the hardest hitters at middleweight. Fuck yeah, man. I'd feel good too. That brings us to the main event that I missed. A fight that Leon Edwards won the first round, surprisingly, taking Kamaru Usman's back and almost getting him in a rear naked choke. But Usman picked himself up second round, third round, and fourth round. Just basically was outstriking and wrestling Leon to a decision, and that's where it was leading. But, he, you know, Kamaru, as of late, and I've noticed this, has been falling in love with his hands. Kept staying on the feet whenever it would go back to the feet. He would let the fight go to the ground when it would naturally go there, but he didn't really press to go there. And that's what kind of led to this, where Usman was just trying to duck and weave, set up his boxing, and Leon, with one of the most perfect feints a jab to a short little right that gets the jab, like the left jab gets Kamaru diving to his left, which opens up the right head kick for Leon, and Leon just lands a right head kick out of hell that knocks Kamaru Usman out. Leon Edwards is your new welterweight champion. A lot of people were saying it was a lucky knockout, and I've been saying it since the knockout happened because I've seen the clip over and over and over and over again. It was not a lucky knockout. It was luck in the terms of that it knocked Kamaru out cold, and any dude with a granite chin probably would have ate that, but it's not a lucky knockout whatsoever. Leon was clearly noticing something. They'd been practicing that in training. His corner even said it going into the fifth round. After the fourth round, his corner kept saying that, you know, he's going to duck to his left, set up that head kick. This is how you set it up. Keep doing the feint jab. And that's what he did. So, you know, all of you guys can say it was lucky. You know, like I said, it's lucky in the sense of the knockout power because, you know, that's how it is in MMA. That type of luck can happen to anyone. The you know, the way of the fight can sway in anyone's favor at any moment because of that, but it's not lucky in the way that he landed it. That is not a lucky knockout whatsoever when it comes to landing. He set that up. It was a perfectly placed head kick. Beautifully set up. So, for anyone who's still saying that Usman got knocked out by a lucky head kick, no, that wasn't lucky at all. In the sense of it putting Usman out at that moment, sure. But the way it landed, the way it was set up, just the way it was, man, not lucky at all. That was set up. That was planned. Anyway, that was it for 278 and my wedding night. We're moving on to the next fight night, which was actually not the week after my wedding week, but the week after that one. So September 3rd, we had Cyril Gane versus Tai Tuivasa. A pretty forgettable fight night. That was going to be the first ever fight in France. And I mean, when it comes to names, it was going to be forgettable, but the whole night wasn't forgettable at all. It was actually incredible. The first 3 fights started back and forth fights that ended in finishes. It was awesome. The next 2 fights were pretty dominant fights that were pretty fucking action-packed. The prelim headliner was a brutal 19-second finish. That was a front kick to punches finish. It was nasty. Then we go to the main card, man. The main card, first fight of the night is Nathaniel Wood versus Charles Jourdain. No, in no way, in no universe is that a not exciting fight. Nathaniel Wood outstriking, out-wrestling Charles Jourdain in a back-and-forth action-packed fight to get a unanimous decision. Then next, William Gomez and Yarmo Aarons doing the same thing. Back and forth, going to a majority decision. It was incredible. If that wasn't enough, Roman Kopylov comes in a back-and-forth fight against Alessia Tikiriko and knocks him out in the 3rd round. Then Joaquin Buckley and Nasruddin Imavov have a somewhat forgettable contest where Nasruddin Imavov wins via unanimous decision. And then to pick things right back up, Robert Whittaker versus Marvin Vettori. Whittaker and Vettori have a back-and-forth action-packed fight that sees Robert win 2 out of the 3 rounds. But apparently 3 out of the 3 rounds on 3 judges' scorecards. But all, no matter what, it was a back and forth, action-packed fight, as expected with Robert Whittaker. It was incredible. Both guys landing clean shots, and then like the only takedown that was genuinely landed was in the 3rd round for Robert Whittaker to just get himself the round. They got back up after, started trading bangs again. It was awesome. Then the heavyweights started to bang, dude. Cyril Gane, bro, just he's a striker, a kickboxer, a very talented kickboxer. His grappling has become somewhat talented recently, but he's a very tall, very talented kickboxer. And Tai Tuivasa was just getting pieced the fuck up. But oh my God, he was landing good shots as well, and just he kept coming forward. It was, yet again, I keep repeating myself, action-packed between these two. Tai Tuivasa landing good shots, stumbling Cyril Gane a couple times, and just walking forward through Cyril Gane's absolute violent punches, but ultimately, he could only take so much of that. And Cyril Gane in the 2nd round started to find a key to victory. He started to slow Tai down with body shots that would land over and over and over again, and they were clearly hurting him. And then in the 3rd round, he started landing body shots and punches that were just hurting Tai, to when it got to a point where he landed body shot that kind of folded Tai, and then he started landing a combo of punches that really was going to put Tai out. And here's my problem, all right? Here's my problem. The finish is fine. He was going to finish Tai Tuivasa anyway. My problem is the fact that Cyril Gane, yet again, landed shots to the back of the head deliberately because of the way his stupid fucking combo is. He needs to work on that. Because he's lucky that, it was a sequence where Tai Tuivasa was already going out anyway, and it was overshadowed by the mass amount of clean punches he landed before it. But if he did that in any other fight where it was maybe like 1 or 2 punches and then he landed that, he could get fucking disqualified. On top of that, he needs to watch out, for doing that, because he could kill someone doing that. People have been killed before from just getting rabbit punched in the back of the head. Like, tiny little hammer fists, tiny little short punches to the back of the head. People have been killed because of that. So, I was rather upset with the finish because it was already bad enough he had Tai Tuivasa violently hurt. He was about to put him out. But then he landed those punches to the back of the head to really seal it. It was the punch to the back of the head that really put him out. That bothered me because, like I said, you could have seriously hurt him there. You could have hit him in the wrong spot on the neck and paralyzed him, or just from the punch to the back of the head in general, you could have caused serious brain damage, as is. Like, you're going to get brain damage from getting knocked out as is, but you could have caused far worse brain damage, caused him to get violently sick and potentially die, because we've seen it in boxing. So, I was really upset with the finish, very upset with Cyril Gane, very upset with his fans who choose to just kind of ignore it. Good finish, but just that little punch right there pisses me off, and he needs to work on that. So, I know he's not going to fucking watch this, but if in some rare, weird event that he is, Cyril, you need to fucking work on that punch. You need to get that out of your arsenal when you have somebody fucking turtled up, leaned over. Because that fucking punch to the back of the head is going to land, and it's going to go wrong eventually. And you're going to end up getting fucking manslaughter charges because, yes, it was a sanctioned bout, but you killed the fucker. And even if you don't get manslaughter charges, you're still going to end up having to pay damages to the man's family. So, work on your fucking combos when you have somebody turtled up, or, face the consequences eventually. But either way, good fight night, just terrible final punch. Just terrible, terrible final punch. So that was it for the fight nights. The next week, I believe, we had UFC 279. So it was like right after that. We had Nate Diaz versus what was supposed to be Khamzat Chimaev. And boy, that whole week was just a mess. Oh my God, man. There was fights being canceled. But it was really, I think, like the 24 hours leading up to the fight, it was just a complete mess. We had fucking Khamzat Chimaev come in like 8 pounds or 6 pounds overweight. Nate Diaz making a big stink about it, saying, nah, bro, like, I'm not going to fucking fight him. I don't want to fight him at that. I'm not fighting it. Like, I'm not fighting him at fucking middleweight. I'm not changing it to middleweight. I'm not doing catchweight. Not only that, but like even before that, on Thursday, the press conference got canceled because a huge fucking like little battle happened between Chimaev's crew and Diaz's camp where they were throwing shit at each other. It was very reminiscent of fucking Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz. Like, it was just so weird, man. The whole lead up to the whole fight night, like the whole pay-per-view, just so fucking weird. So now that Chimaev misses weight and Nate Diaz is making a huge fucking deal about it, Kevin Holland comes in and says, I'll fight him at catchweight. Tony Ferguson says, fuck it. You know what? I'll fight Nate Diaz. So then, because Li Jingliang and Daniel Rodriguez are out opponents, D-Rod's like, fuck it, I'll fight Li Jingliang at catchweight. So it was just weird. We had Nate Diaz versus Chimaev to begin with, and that's how it was for months. All of a sudden, the actual main event ends up being Diaz versus Tony Ferguson. However, that honestly, in my opinion, probably ended up being the better fight for them, for Nate Diaz, because it was supposed to be his UFC retirement fight. Not his retirement from MMA, just his final fight on his UFC contract. It was supposed to be his swan song. What better way than an aging Tony Ferguson whose fighting style is very complementary to Nate Diaz's, right? Like, who better? So, let's talk about the main card. Because we had Chris Barnett doing what Chris Barnett does in the prelims. That was awesome. Julian Erosa doing what he does and completely dominating Hakeem Dawodu. And just Jamie Pickett getting TKO'd by Dennis Tululin, which was surprising. But the main card is what we really want to talk about, right? So, let's talk about it. Johnny Walker versus Iwan Kutalaba. This is not how I expected the whole fucking fight to go. You know, the way that Johnny Walker's been, you expect Johnny Walker to keep it standing. Same with Iwan Kutalaba. That's what I thought was going to happen. Nope. The fight went to the ground. Iwan looking like he was going to submit Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker getting out of it and then showing that apparently he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fucking black belt out of nowhere and just scrambling, getting Iwan Kutalaba's back after a while and just sinking in a rear naked choke that I don't think anyone fucking expected, bro. Not a single person expected Johnny Walker to get that finish. So then we're going in to the next fight. We have Macy Chiasson versus fucking other queen of violence, Irene Aldana. This fight was absolute calamity because it was back and forth for a little bit, but mostly Irene Aldana out fucking striking Macy Chiasson. And then in the third round, man, Irene Aldana lands an upkick to the body from the ground that just out of nowhere just drops, like it lands to the body and just drops Macy Chiasson like a sack of potatoes. Like in the UFC terms, knocks out Macy Chiasson. Like, it was weird. It was such a weird strike that landed and fucking just drops Macy like she just shut down, completely shut down. So pretty good start to the main card so far. 2 fights that end in finishes. One finish that we didn't expect. Another finish that was awesome but fucking weird. So then we have D-Rod versus Li Jingliang. Very back and forth fight that was, in my opinion, very clearly going 2-1 in Li Jingliang's favor. They were hurting each other. It was very back and forth on the feet, on the ground. But, like, when it comes to the stats and, you know, in fan opinion, Li Jingliang had the better of the stats. When you're going to the scoring criteria, Li Jingliang had the better of the stats when it comes to the scoring criteria. Unfortunately, I don't know why, but unfortunately, 2 judges didn't see it that way. One judge had it right and saw it in the favor of Li Jingliang, but 2 judges saw it apparently in the way of Daniel Rodriguez, unfortunately. So, Li Jingliang, still to this day, saying he got robbed via a split decision. So, we're going to the co-main event now. Khamzat Chimaev versus Kevin Holland. Khamzat comes out immediately. Probably the most bitchiest move that anyone has ever seen. Not in my opinion, but in a lot of other people's opinions. A lot of people are mad at him for it. Not only did he miss weight and talk shit to Nate Diaz and then not get the fight and not take the fight, but then he fakes a glove touch with Kevin Holland and goes straight to the takedown and submits him via a Darce choke like 2 minutes later. It was the cheesiest fucking thing ever. I'll be honest, though. Holland did a good job on the ground getting out of certain submission attempts because he had other submission attempts other than that Darce. And Kevin fucking fought it for a while, but ultimately, man, it was Khamzat Chimaev with that fucking brutal strength and that incredible grappling that, choked him out cold and just ended his night very quickly. And honestly, I think it was a more tailor-made fight, very easy fight for Khamzat Chimaev. I think he would have won either fight that he got, but just all in all, it was a better night for Khamzat. That brings us to the main event of the evening. That's Nate Diaz versus Tony Ferguson. Nothing too much to talk about. Nate Diaz completely piecing up Tony, leg kicking him into oblivion, fucking just outstriking him. And then Tony going for a takedown in the fourth round, peculiarly, and getting submitted via a very predictable guillotine choke, because that's usually what Nate Diaz does. When somebody goes for like a double leg or something, or they go for a single leg into the full guard, not the half guard, he usually tries to get that full guard guillotine, and he usually sinks it, and that's exactly what happened. Tony Ferguson ends up getting submitted by Nate Diaz, and Nate Diaz has a nice little swan song to the end of his UFC career. Something that Ferguson said, though, after the fight, in the fucking press conference, that kind of had me a bit worried, was that he is not done, apparently. He thinks he's not done. He's still in the prime of his career. And even DC thinks so. A lot of fans think so. It hurts to say this. It really does. But I think Tony's done. I think Tony should do one more fight and then hang up the gloves, no matter what, win or lose. Honestly, he should not keep going. Maybe one more fight to have his swan song, but if he loses, he shouldn't keep trying to get a win for his swan song. That should be it. He should hang up the gloves. If not, he should hang up the gloves before he gets another fight. He is not going to get any better. The game is just evolving without him, unfortunately. It's just, that's how it is. It's the way the game is. Every fighter has experienced this at some point. You know what I mean? People like Ken Shamrock and Frank Shamrock have. Randy Couture has. Fucking Don Fry has. Tito Ortiz has. Fucking Chuck Liddell has. Rashad Evans. Everyone has experienced this at some point. I think Tony needs to take this into fact and just hang it up. That's coming from a fan, though. Not a professional opinion. That's coming from a fan who just loved watching him over the years. Anyway, let's move on. We have Sandhagen versus Song for our final night, our final fight night. And we had quite a peculiar fight night. Very fun, actually. We had, in the preliminary main event, basically, we had Damon Jackson TKOing Pat Sabatini like it was nothing in the first round, just shortly after losing his mom, I believe. Just very, very emotional fucking time. Awesome, though. So then, in the main card, we have Anthony Fluffy Hernandez versus Marc-Andre Barrial. And Anthony Hernandez, the whole fight, just piecing up Marc-Andre Barrial, dominating him on the ground, chokes him out cold with an arm triangle choke in the third round. If you guys don't know who Anthony Hernandez is, by the way, this is the same guy who fucking choked out BJJ legend Rodolfo Vieira. So, yeah, this guy is not one to take lightly. I think he's going to be a little bit of a problem at middleweight. He just needs to work on his game more. But his grappling is definitely underrated. Definitely underrated. And he showed that. But the heavyweight fight on the card was between Rodrigo Nascimento and Tanner Bosner, which I believe this has been a fight that has been scheduled a couple times now and has constantly been moved. I think this is the third time it's been scheduled. Finally, it happens. And I don't like rooting against the Canadian. Trust me, I don't. But when somebody like Tanner Bosner says the dumbest shit like he does, for example, dude straight up fucking said that, if you need a sports psychologist, then are you even an athlete? And basically just question your mental strength. And you're basically questioning whether you should be here or not. And I think that's kind of fucked because we're only yes, you guys are elite athletes, but at the end of the day, you guys are human. So I was very much cheering against him. So when Rodrigo Nascimento was just pummeling him for 2 of the 3 rounds, it was a nice fucking feeling to see. It was very nice feeling to see. But that wasn't the only feel-good moment I got. Joe Pyfer fighting Alan Amedovski. Joe Pyfer TKOing Alan Amedovski in the first round and cutting probably one of the most inspirational promos that I've seen in the last couple of years. Dude picks up the mic and tells us about his struggle. One of the hardest stories I've ever had to hear. Dude came from a house of physical and sexual abuse and rose above all that, made it to the UFC. He also struggled with homelessness throughout his career, made it to the UFC, and here he is, main card of a fight night, gets the first round TKO in an emphatic way. And like I said, cuts one of the most inspirational promos I've ever seen. And then we get Andre Fili versus Bill Algeo in a fun back and forth fucking fight of the night contender. But if you think that wasn't enough, Andre Fili winning by split decision, by the way. If that was fight of the night, then it completely gets overshadowed by the co-main event. Gregory Rodriguez versus Chidi Njokuani. And both guys, holy fucking shit. Only went 2 rounds. Finished, I'll just say the result right now. Gregory Rodriguez wins via a violent TKO. But the fight, the way it went, first round, Chidi Njokuani hurts Gregory Rodriguez. Like, literally hurts him. And looks like he's about to finish the fight. Gregory Rodriguez comes back, recovers, hurts Chidi Njokuani near the end of the round. Looks like he's about to get him out of the way. Chidi recovers. Bell rings. Second round starts. Chidi hits Gregory again. Gregory looks like he's going out, and it's going to the ground. All of a sudden, Chidi Njokuani gets reversed. He's getting fucking hammer-fisted on the ground, and he's turtling up. He manages to wiggle out of the position, save himself for a little bit. Gregory is now in top position in like half guard, gets back into that side control, starts landing more punches again, and forces the fucking referee stoppage. It was absolute insanity. They just kept hurting each other. We didn't know who was going to win the fight, and all of a sudden, Gregory Rodriguez, like a monster, just coming back and winning via TKO. And if that wasn't enough, he walks out with probably the ugliest cut I have ever seen. Holy fucking shit. But, speaking of cuts, Corey Sandhagen versus Song Yadong. This was slated to be a back-and-forth, action-packed bantamweight main event. And we got exactly what was advertised. Corey Sandhagen landing bombs on Song Yadong, and Song Yadong doing the same. You know, at moments successfully closing the distance and landing bombs. Having Corey Sandhagen kind of running to kind of get that distance again. But it was ultimately Corey Sandhagen and that distance management that won him the fight. And those sharp elbows whenever they'd get to the ground. Whenever they'd get up against the cage or to the ground, Corey would land these cutting elbows that ended up cutting a very deep cut above Song Yadong's eye that just got worse and worse. And by the 4th round, he forced the doctor stoppage. It was a brutal cut. And honestly, it was just a very precise and calculated TKO from Corey Sandhagen. Like, yeah, you never want to get the doctor stoppage win, but in the way that Corey Sandhagen did, it was almost definite. You know what I mean? It was almost guaranteed. It wasn't like bullshit. The doctor stepped in and ruined what was going to be a perfectly good fight. It was more of the doctor kind of stepped in and made sure his eyebrow wasn't going to fall off his fucking face. So, honestly, good doctor stoppage on this. And Corey Sandhagen with one of the most precise fucking wins I've seen in the last, little bit. Anyway, that's it for the UFC events. Holy shit. 40 fucking minutes of UFC events. My throat is hurting. I need a drink. But that's it for the podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode. Again, I apologize for being gone for a month and a half, but I'm back now. I'm going to do my goddamn best to stay on schedule. There might be a week or or two where I'm not going to be able to record because it might be too busy, but I ain't going to do this month and a half bullshit ever again, unless something huge happens that fucking turns the entirety of my life upside down for a little bit. But again, I apologize for that, and I hope you guys take my little offering of a vlog at a live MMA event as kind of like an apology. But anyway, I apologize for that. I hope to see you guys in the next episode, and hopefully we'll have some UFC to talk about next episode, because this week we didn't have any to talk about. We only had last week's shit, the shit that I missed. I think the only thing I got to talk about is Yoel Romero absolutely murdering Melvin Manhoof. That's about it. But anyway, I hope to see you guys in the next episode. Anyway, that's it. See you guys next episode. Have a wonderful work week. Or at least try to. Peace, guys.
You've been listening to the Dillo's Dojo podcast. Keep in touch with Dillo on his social media at Dillo Ross on Twitter and Dillo Ross on Instagram.